These are never-before-seen pictures of one of the world's fighting elites, a branch of the international military known as Special Forces. In small patrols, these soldiers undertake covert missions, far beyond the capabilities of conventional forces, often deep behind enemy lines. New Zealand is regarded as having one of the world's best special forces, having fought in many major conflicts for over half a century.
It will go in, and if the task is possible to undertake, it will do it and it will achieve the objectives.
New Zealand Special Air Service Group is an elite Tier 1 special force.
Yet despite ability for warfare in any terrain, there is almost nothing known about the New Zealand SAS. The unit has a strict no publicity policy, which they have rigorously upheld since its inception on the 1st of May 1955.
We need to maintain a level of secrecy so that we don't compromise tasks that are currently underway or potentially future tasks.
But its role in the global war on terror has taken the unit from the shadows and reluctantly placed it in the spotlight. In this series, our television cameras have been granted unprecedented access to New Zealand's most revered unit for 2 years. You will glimpse exclusive footage inside the world of New Zealand's Special Air Service, better known as 1NZ SAS. For reasons of national security and to ensure no current operations or personnel are compromised, much about this unit and its activities will remain forever secret. This is what we can reveal. Every year, the 12,000 men and women of New Zealand's Defence Forces are issued a discreet invitation by the NZSAS to apply to join their number. Those who respond will discover this is no ordinary job application.
The Special Forces soldier is trained in a number of military disciplines, and that right there is what distinguishes them from the conventional soldier. What you have is what are known as the 1%ers. They're the uppermost 1% in both mental aptitude as well as physical aptitude.
It will demand 2 years of utmost dedication and personal sacrifice before they'll discover if they have what it takes to join the exclusive 1%. And it all begins with the infamous selection course, seen here for the first time. Selection will submit these 50 volunteers from the Army, Navy and Air Force to a series of tests designed to meet the minimum standards for an SAS soldier. Tests such as an ability to survive days without food or sleep and to safely navigate unfamiliar terrain, always against the clock. By the last day, whoever is left standing will have gone through physical and mental hell. Unaware of what lies ahead, the volunteers have been standing resolute since dawn, trying to hide any signs of nerves. Each knows few will make it through the next 10 days. What they don't realise is some won't even make it through today.
What was going through my mind was, just settle down and, it's a long road to home. It was built up to be something that is extremely difficult.
Not knowing what's going to happen and how you're going to react when it starts to happen.
It's the hardest challenge that they've had to undertake in their military careers to date.
Stand back! East!
With the famous sand-coloured beret and blue belt as their prize, the volunteers must be prepared to give their all.
For a number of you, you're going to be confronted with some very demanding challenges. It will really test you both physically and mentally.
I would rather have no one pass this selection than lower the standards.
Put your best foot forward, and I wish you all the best.
Next, some words of wisdom.
Look this way.
A veteran of missions in Malaya, Borneo and Vietnam, Honorary Colonel David Ogilvie is one of the unit's famous originals.
Initiative, resourcefulness, physical guts, mental drive, all the things that we're looking for from you. Give it heaps.
In everybody's mind, I think, when they enter selection is
Just imagine that when you're nearly at the top of that hill, that there's another hill beyond that.
Everybody was feeling the pain, but you had a guy on each side of you who was exactly the same.
And they lasted one day, including some supposedly very fit physical training people. I think that, the whole thing was a bit much for them.
Now comes their first surprise. The volunteers have to empty their packs for a full inspection.
What we have given them makes up 35 kgs. It's been checked prior to them coming.
But history has shown there's always temptation for some to lessen the load.
If you don't have some of those items, it makes you stand out.
Move!
Watching the volunteers' every move are fully trained SAS soldiers, each with an innate understanding of what the unit needs, because they've had to prove it to get here. And it means they know all the shortcuts to look for.
Yeah, can you be rattled? So we can all be rattled. It's how quick some people get rattled compared to others.
Those with missing items face a dressing down and are re-kitted.
Get changed into PT kit.
Move!
These volunteers are as fit as they've ever been, following months of preparation. And they'll need to be.
We have to induce a certain amount of stress and mental fatigue in a very short time period, just to test the individuals and their ability to withstand all of that.
Course! Shut!
Listen up. On the command move, this is what I want to see happen. Leaving your weapons where they are, double down. Move!
Straight away, they must prove their fitness levels. Anyone not meeting the 10-minute target will fail.
When you want something in life, you've got to go after it. I came along very fit. I wanted to get in there, and nothing was going to stop me. Nothing. And I mean nothing. And they really gave it to me.
954, 955. 10 minutes 18. Let's move over to the side there.
The first test of selection, and already one man's dream is over.
That's it. If they don't meet the required standard of any of those fitness tests, they are removed.
Without pause, they are set a barrage of physical tests to which they must give maximum effort. And while some outperform, others crumble.
If you're lazy, you're going to have problems, eh? If you don't put the work in beforehand, it's going to catch you out.
Chin comes above and back down full arm. Ensure that the legs stay naturally hanging at all times. All the way up.
Guys get nervous before doing pull-ups and they lose all their upper body strength.
G1 requirement, no more than 130.
Here, no one escapes scrutiny, and a few have underestimated what's required.
You start to see people drop out in the first couple of hours.
In a heartbeat, they're back in fatigues as they're confronted with more hurdles. Tests that take several days in the conventional forces are crammed into the first few hours of SAS selection.
We do all the physical tests that are required in the New Zealand Army. That's the standard that we set.
The testing grounds are not restricted to dry land, as time and time again they're sent back into freezing water during the morning.
Move into the water.
But pushing the thresholds has been carefully calculated.
They compress everything together in one day.
And you think that if the whole selection's like this, you're going to have to dig a bit deeper.
First man sitting down on this cone.
There's no respite and they're straight into the next challenge.
Up that rope.
And by now, the body is starting to hurt.
When you get back down, you'll touch the ground, you get straight back up there.
They will be starting to feel fatigued.
Yeah, stop there. You have to go back, start again. Tough.
Endurance is probably the biggest one rather than physical strength.
One more shot. Hurry up. Get up there.
Stop.
It's only midday, but for some, the dream is over.
The selection course sorts out those who can actually put to one side the aggravation of the moment for the long-term purpose of, finishing.
Was demanding physically, mentally, and I guess to a degree emotionally.
It just made you run everywhere. All the gear you had, quite often the gear would be scattered from back of the barracks right down to headquarters because we wouldn't have it fitting properly.
The temperature is rising fast on day one of selection for the New Zealand SAS. Already 4 volunteers are on their way home.
They have a measure of military experience already. They are fit. They are well motivated. They are a lot tougher.
The volunteers have undergone rigorous psychological tests to determine if they have the compulsory physical, mental and emotional balance that the unit demands.
We use multiple sources, so we use the personality tests, cognitive tests, we interview people, we look at their past performance. Past performance is one of the key indicators of future performance.
You may get people who are attracted to the unit who are definitely not suited for service in the unit because of their backgrounds, their profiling.
If they don't meet the qualities, we can't recommend them.
Afternoon brings on the real business of the day. And there are some who are just hanging in.
They should be strong enough, fit enough to be able to take that into their stride and keep going.
1 8-kilometre forced march by foot. Total 72 minutes to complete the task. Beware of oncoming traffic. Mate!
If they fail to meet the time, look for arrest, infringe in any way, they will be eliminated. Every footstep carries the added burden of 35 kilograms on their backs.
I was fortunate enough to come from the battalion where you carry your house on your back.
The combined load of the pack with survival gear, radios and weaponry is the equivalent of carrying 2 heavy suitcases. And with the clock ticking, it's all carried at a blister-inducing rate of 7 kilometres an hour. As muscles cramp and leather boots rub toes raw, the field thins out. Even these seasoned soldiers are starting to feel the effects of the day.
And you're starting to get blisters on your feet. You just got to cope with it.
The pack cuts into your shoulders.
It was going to hurt, but my focus was getting through.
If you look at pictures of soldiers, sometimes you see it's a little man who's carried the Bren gun. It's a little man who's carrying the machine gun. It's a little man who knows how to drive himself and has been doing that all of his life.
Come up when you're ready. Grease up, up.
While most have made it to the end, there are still those who are over the 72-minute time limit. And again, there is no second chance.
Well, you're gone.
After 10 bruising hours, those remaining are loaded into trucks and driven deep into country to face the brutal chase known as the Hare and Hounds. Although tired and sore, they must chase a fresh and fast SAS soldier, the Hare.
This is a maximal activity. You want to run as hard as you can for the given distance. You would have stopped when told to stop. At no time are you to drop behind the 2 sweepers. Group 1, go!
Those volunteers on borrowed time are sent first.
Stand by, go!
Therefore, at the end, they should be coming in around about the same time.
And these 2 legs, they weren't going to let me down.
Go!
To make matters harder, 2 more SAS soldiers act as sweepers, the Hounds, and no one must finish behind them. By now, it's not just weariness that is slowing them down.
I think the boots play a big part as well. For me, I didn't choose the ideal boot for selection. I mean, if you can't walk, you can't finish. It's your wheels, really.
All the way through there is pain. It is hard, it's very hard. You're starting to get blisters by this time. The boots just rub.
The thought of being beaten by the clock or caught by the hounds is enough to spur most on.
And there's one speed only. Just go for it.
With time ebbing away, there is one last push to the finish line.
You know, if the bloke behind you passes you, you better start moving.
As the faster runners reach the end, there is relief. But they've only made it through the first day of 10. Meanwhile, the stragglers are in danger of falling prey to the hounds. For the unluckiest, time has run out on selection.
If anybody was truthful, it drives you on. You're going, I'm still here today. No, I'm not.
After 11 hours, of the 50 men who started out believing they had what it takes for New Zealand's Special Air Service, 9 were wrong.
The first day will break you physically. So then you've got to turn it on mentally.
And as the remainder will soon discover, this was the easiest day.
Lots of route marching, lots of sleepless nights, and lots of pressure put on to see if we could handle it.
And all the time was this issue of, do I really want to be here? And of course, some people found out that the sacrifice for them was not worth it.
And about 3 a.m. in the morning, running down the road in a pair of shorts and bare feet, I told the instructor, Joe Glenn, as he is now, Joe Wharenga then, to stick SAS up any place he liked, and I was leaving. And that was the end of the course.
It's the next phase of selection for New Zealand's elite SAS unit. Those who survive the physical challenges of day one now face a far tougher test.
Biggest challenge on our selection course is the second, third and fourth days.
Like SAS troopers operating behind enemy lines, the volunteers must navigate a route back to base via a series of checkpoints. Deceptively simple, open country navigation will prove the downfall of most on selection.
Also, that's the isolation factor, minimal communication, and of course it's controlled in terms of how much sleep and food they get.
The effects of food and sleep deprivation and strength-sapping pack work are intended to play havoc with their ability to function. Reading a map proves a struggle.
What's your distance?
3.6.
How long do you reckon take you?
1 hour, 12 minutes done.
But there is absolutely no help from those observing.
There's no encouragement on the selection course because the individual has to be self-motivated.
The NZSAS seek men who can think on their feet and operate alone. For some, this lack of guidance causes unexpected pressure, which increases as the pace hots up.
A lot of people know they've got a certain amount of time, so that often weighs on people's mind. If they make an incorrect route choice, that often plays quite heavily.
When you look at A to B, it might be the look most direct and fast, but you need to go A through D and E to get to B.
My nav wasn't so hot. The thing I did was made sure I was quick on my feet, so if I made an error, I could make it up.
Sadly, even some of the more experienced soldiers have not had enough instruction or practice at navigation.
They know they've made a mistake, and then people start thinking, I'm behind. How far behind am I? What am I really doing out here? Is this getting too tough?
Once you've fallen behind in time, it's difficult to make it up.
You're put in a position where a lot of people are thinking about quitting.
and then they start that self-doubt process.
And that's where people start to drop out.
It's an unceremonial departure from selection for those who have given up.
That second, third and fourth day is where we have the highest attrition rates.
As the days blur together in the navigational phase, the volunteers struggle with the debilitating effects of sleep deprivation.
We keep them occupied and awake because we also meter out the amount of sleep that they have.
Tired.
Despite an increasingly fragile emotional state, they must maintain the highest levels of soldiering.
If they're not normally carrying their rifle with two hands on the weapon, ready for use, it'll be frowned upon.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It isn't long before exhaustion and the grind of hard days take their toll.
Timings are harder and the food is less, and people push themselves further and harder each day until they just blow.
It's quite easy to see who's prepared and who's not. You know, are they still presenting themselves at checkpoints upright and quite fresh, or are they head down, a bit moping, maybe look like they're doubting themselves?
By now, even basic navigation is a challenge in concentration.
And it becomes very mental, especially towards the end, because you're not getting food and you're not getting sleep.
Where are we? Your body keeps going. I mean, the body's a pretty amazing thing. The pain is here.
Physically, mentally and emotionally low, more and more volunteers fall further behind.
That's that decision point. I mean, you're back there, there's a pack, you can leave the pack there and walk away. You actually that pack back on your shoulders and keep going.
But these soldiers are drawn on by ambition to be part of a distinguished band of brothers. An elite which has participated in conflicts around the globe since 1955. Like its modus operandi, little is known of the unit's origins. In 1940, Hitler was winning the battle for North Africa. Germany had forced Britain into desperate retreat. The British retaliation would not be through conventional airstrikes or using divisions of Allied tanks. Instead, it would come from a small British land unit that targeted enemy supply lines and stationary aircraft in hit-and-run raids. This was the birth of the SAS, the Special Air Service, the brainchild of a brilliant Scots Guard, Lieutenant David Stirling. Large raids lacked the necessary element of surprise, so Stirling devised a plan involving small groups of highly trained and superbly motivated men with more than a touch of maverick.
Small groups inserted behind the enemy lines. They could inflict damage quite out of proportion to the number of people involved.
Even their name, the Special Air Service, was designed to fool German intelligence that the attacks were from large air divisions. The SAS soon linked up with another motorised commando raiding party called the Long Range Desert Group, or the LRDG. Only 100 men strong, the LRDG was stacked with New Zealand soldiers.
He knew of New Zealanders as being, as he put it, farmers, and they knew how to look after their vehicles. They're very adaptable. If there's anything that could be done, they would do it.
Like the SAS, the LRDG's methods were unconventional and missions clandestine.
It wasn't normal for the Long Range Desert Group to wear any insignia that indicated who they were. A shirt, a singlet, a pair of shorts, and mountain climbing boots, and socks. That was our uniform, yeah. And a smile.
Together, the SAS and LRDG travelled across the deserts, wreaking havoc against the enemy.
Shooting up convoys, blowing up dumps where they found them, and raiding airfields. But they say that the SAS and the Long Range Desert Group destroyed more planes on the ground than the Air Force did in the whole of the Egyptian campaign.
North Africa was New Zealand's introduction to the SAS. It would be the start of an enduring relationship, which today sees a new generation of hopefuls aspiring to join. And as the navigational phase moves into its final day, weary bodies rebel under the relentless pack marching.
I got major blisters. My feet were majorly swollen to the point that a few days into the selection, I couldn't take my boots off, or else I'd never be able to put them back on again.
Straight across the shoulders, because that's just a holding there. That's where all pain is.
Fatigue and unpredictable terrain are the cause of sprains and strains. For those crippled by their exertions, bright red panels on their packs ensure easy pickups when aerial rescue becomes necessary. As the casualties mount, the numbers still in contention fall. These hardy few are now running on empty.
People are going, well, if this is how I feel, at this stage, I'm not going to make it.
Injuries, exhaustion and a loss of willpower mean this is the moment of truth.
Yeah, there's a lot of people dropping out, eh? I've got nothing left.
For 3 days on end, hungry and tired, they've marched with crippling loads. And then, the navigation phase is over. For many, it's been a test of endurance beyond their limits.
I think the pain was all over. The pain was all over your body.
The remaining volunteers are returned to barracks. With their bodies and minds reeling, and the promise of more days to follow, many realise their SAS dream is over.
Sort of sitting down going, is this really for me? What do I get out of it? Why am I doing it?
Throughout the long night, knowing what lies ahead becomes too much for fragile psyches. A trickle of withdrawals becomes a flood.
I think that staying awake when you've been awake pretty much for 5 or 6 days is the most difficult thing. It's the body's trying to shut you down.
I've never been so crippled in my life as trying to walk in bricks, frozen bricks, with wet socks and feet that resembled marshmallows.
And I can recall being so tired that I saw some dairy cows that went past and they were upside down, walking upside down.
There's only one way to join the New Zealand Special Air Service: to pass the arduous 10-day selection course.
Not everyone passes, nor should everyone pass. Would not have the calibre of the soldiers they could handle the types of missions or tasks that they're expected to do.
By day 8, the exhaustive search for the right recruits has meant that only 7 of the original 50 volunteers remain. If being starved and kept awake for a week wasn't already enough to break their spirits, then the next task surely will. In addition to their combat load, they must carry a full 20-litre jerry can through harsh swampland for 24 hours.
It's always been talked up as a nemesis and the thing that's going to exert most pain on your body and most pain on you mentally.
Alright, stand to attention there.
The challenging part is the fact that the people's minds believe that it is the hardest.
Exercise von Temsky. Yeah, this is our opportunity to weed out the dreamers from those who are going to carry on.
Like when athletes hit the wall, this is our wall.
And to make things even tougher, they must all take turns carrying a second jerry can.
And they'll check to make sure those caps are tight, you know. If anybody drops any water out of those, you'll get a punishment for it.
Identify north. Where you go?
They will be told a direction to travel in, and that's pretty much it.
Without deviating from their set course, they must push through whatever obstacle is in their path. Once von Temsky is underway, there's only one way out: the finish.
Go, let's go.
Soldiers don't have to reach any destination. When it's time to stop, the activity will stop.
Overloaded with little room to manoeuvre, it's a slow and painful trudge forward.
It's just about putting one foot in front of the other, dogged determination to get through to the other end.
That's a lot of weight, especially when you start carrying the two, because it requires more balance. You've got your pack on your back, and you've got a rifle slung as well.
Again, it's another 40 kilos when you're talking about weight.
But for dog-tired bodies, trying to put one blistered foot in front of another is agony.
Can't get through that way, stop.
Even the environment conspires against them.
Yeah, I got cut up pretty heavily trying to push through.
That's where it hurt. It really started to hurt.
Hour after relentless hour, the task remains the same.
It was cold.
2 minutes.
It plays havoc when you stop. That's generally when you cramp up, so the best thing is to keep going.
A break offers little comfort as cold, wet clothes add extra weight and boots rub against raw blisters.
My feet went soft, and it was just a matter of letting them rot away at that time and sort it out later.
Bontemski is performing to expectation, testing each man's fortitude to breaking point.
Any thought of getting out of there or about going home, everything seems to cross people's minds at that point, and it really tests their determination of, do they really want to be there?
If the volunteers try to sneak in extra rest breaks, the staff push even harder.
Hurry up, so it doesn't take that long to sort out your gear.
Knowing SAS troopers have endured far worse during actual missions.
I don't know what the packs weighed, but they weighed more than we did. Probably 1.5 times what each individual weighed.
While fighting raged in East Timor, an SAS patrol faced their own Bontemski in an effort to protect a village from armed militia.
There was a particular village that was of interest to us. There was reports that militia were again harassing the local populace.
Facing impassable terrain, the only access was by foot, so each man had to carry his own equipment, supplies and water for 10 long sun-baked days.
Those were carrying, you had to carry 4 litres of water per day, but we could only carry about 7 days max. Plus we had the food, plus we had ammunition, radios, our webbing, packs, sleeping gear. So it was out of control. We'd have to get lifted up on our feet by 2 people.
Used to patrolling long distances in training, in East Timor, the terrain and pack weight proved exhausting.
We could only walk for about 15-20 minutes in about 35-40 degree heat with no water before we'd have to have a break.
It's mental and physical toughness which drives Special Forces soldiers beyond the capabilities of most. For 14 hours, those left have carried close to their own body weight through New Zealand's toughest terrain.
It tests the individual, it tests them to an extent that you question why you are here and why are you doing this.
Just when the volunteers think they're getting a rest and some food, they discover it's not chocolate being handed out, but glow sticks.
And this guy said, another 10 to go. I couldn't believe it. It just blew my mind. I said, you've got to be joking me, mate. He said, no, we've got another 10 hours to go.
This moment is make or break in Bontemski.
It's a big psychological barrier. You just got to get inside yourself and just keep pushing on.
Somehow, all 7 find the willpower to carry on.
He has to have willpower. He has to have that. He has to believe in what he's doing and have that determination, which comes from an absolute belief in your own ability to achieve and to keep going under any circumstances. If he's got that, then he's got that different thing.
After continuing all night, Bontemski finally comes to an end. The 7 have made it through. Selection is almost over, but there is one final challenge ahead.
It's not the fear of being on or the unknown so much about the selection course, but it's that nagging fear that you might not make it
There were some very bad moments when you wanted to pull out.
I thought I could finish the 10 days all right. Well, my feet were like plates of meat, I suppose, you know.
Nine days ago, 50 men gathered at the secret location in a personal quest for selection into the New Zealand SAS. Only 7 remain, but their bodies and minds are at breaking point. Now they face a 60-kilometre route march that will take all day and night to complete.
It's a test of endurance, and all they have to do is get to the end.
But the volunteers' bodies are on the verge of total shutdown.
Physically, they are pretty much destroyed, although it's imposed and it's monitored.
Malnourished, vitamin deficient, it's their feet which suffer most.
Lance them and tape them. Try and control them best you can. Bottom line, it's going to hurt.
They're given their first decent feed in days.
I mean, I lost about 10, 12 kgs probably. Something horrendous.
I've never been so hungry in my life. Seriously.
This exercise is designed to test their will to the maximum. Can they continue to function to SAS standard at the extreme of their physical and mental tolerance?
It is incredibly demanding, and by the end of it, most people are pretty knackered. But you have to pass, you have to get to the end.
For one last time, they don heavy loads.
You're mentally fatigued, physically fatigued, your feet hurt. It's only 60 to go, eh?
The volunteers must somehow find hidden reserves if they are to stand any chance of completing the 60 Ks.
Why does a rugby player want to be an All Black? It's the same sort of thing. For me, it was about being the best of the best.
I still had this opportunity right in front of me. I wasn't going to let it go.
Yeah, I'm nearly there. You know, I just got to walk the 60K. And you're at the start point, and it's like, on your marks, get set, go. You know, you're away.
One at a time, they begin their lonely march.
But then those first steps was like, oh, shucks. Everything had seized up, and you just like, get moving, get moving.
For the first 10 kilometres, most push hard despite their frailty.
Because you're not as quick as you were on the first day. And you're quite a few kilos lighter.
Checkpoints come and go. Approaching the 20-kilometre mark, it's a struggle to maintain any momentum.
You start winding back. You know, you can't take big steps. You've got to come in. Because you take big steps, you're really starting to, pull on the muscles and that.
By now, they've passed the point of no return as their bodies start to shut down.
When do I stop for a 5-minute break? Do I stop for a 5-minute break? Because if you stop, then you seize up.
With his legs cruelly failing him at the last hurdle, one man's dream is shattered. Into the final 30 kilometres of the march, the 6 remaining soldiers wage an internal battle, not to give up.
It's very much self-achievement. In this particular instance, you've got nobody pushing you. You want to be there, and you'll do anything to get there.
I chose to be there. I didn't have to be there. I chose to be there. I could leave at any time.
I wanted it. And I was going to run through a brick wall if I had to get it.
With 20 kilometres left, each man keeps going on pure willpower.
It started to get dark and it started to hallucinate. You started to see things moving.
And then you sort of go into a zone. You just look at the stars.
all sense of time is lost, and fearing they're falling behind, frustration sets in.
You get to a checkpoint, you think, this must be the last checkpoint. Right, you keep going, and you just keep going, and that kept on happening.
Then, out of blackness, a small glowing light appears. This is the end of selection.
I didn't realise what you'd achieved up till then. I think the body and the brain was sort of like on, just shut down mode.
One by one, the remaining volunteers reach the last checkpoint, barely able to stand.
It didn't really cross my mind then. I just thought I'd finished and sweet.
It's a great feeling to know how far you can go. It really is. To know that you can just keep going and going till your heart stops.
With the last men in, their selection hell is at an end.
Well, let's...
I sat down. Within a couple of minutes, my nose started to bleed. My feet were blistered. I knew I'd gone quite a long way. It was further than I'd ever gone before.
After 10 days of selection, the ambitions of 50 have become the realisation for just 6 exhausted men who have earned the right to train for the New Zealand SAS.
If you ask anybody who's been in the unit what their proudest moment was, I think it would be when the selection panel says, "You're in."
G'day, Private. Please take a seat. Firstly, congratulations. You've done a tremendous effort just to pass the selection course and get to the end of it. We are happy to select you and take you for the training cycle and to give you the opportunity over the next 9 months to prove yourself and show that you're capable of being posted to this unit. Well done.
But today is only the beginning.
They aren't a member of the unit yet.
It'll take months of training to see if they have what it takes to become full members of the New Zealand SAS.
You do get told this is the easy part. The hard parts that come.
Next week, our cameras will follow the recruits through the demanding 9 months of SAS basic training, known as Cycle. For the first time ever, you will see just what it takes to earn selection into one of the world's fighting elites, the New Zealand SAS.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.